parents secretly gave my sister $500 a week, until I lost my leg and was left without work. You need go to the work. Sister laughing. Then, when I received my inheritance, parents. In retrospect, I should have seen it coming. The favoritism, the dismissiveness, the way my parents always bent over backwards for my sister, Stacy, while I was left to fend for myself. But when you grow up in it, you don't always realize how deep it goes. Not until something shatters the illusion completely. For me, that moment came when I lost my leg. Before the accident, I worked in home repair, painting, wiring, fixing whatever needed fixing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, honest work, and I was good at it. I'd been doing it for years, building a solid reputation, getting referrals from happy customers. I never needed help from anyone, and I was proud of that. Then one bad day changed everything. I was on a job, fixing some electrical wiring in an old house. It was supposed to be simple, but the owner had tampered with the panel before calling me, and I didn't realize how unstable everything was. One wrong step, a power surge, a fall from the second floor, and I woke up in the hospital with half my right leg gone. At first I was too out of it to process it. The painkillers kept everything fuzzy. But when my family finally showed up, reality hit me harder than anything else. I expected some kind of comfort, maybe even sympathy. What I got was laughter. Stacy came in, took one look at me lying there with my leg gone, and smiled. You want to play football? She nudged our dad like it was the funniest thing in the world. He laughed, and shook his head. My mom sighed, but I swear I saw the corner of her mouth twitch, like she was trying not to smile. I stared at them, waiting for someone to say something, anything that wasn't a joke at my expense. But after a few minutes of awkward small talk, they were already checking the time. We have dinner plans, Mom said, grabbing her purse. Glad you're doing well. And then they left. It wasn't my parents who helped me get out of the hospital. It was my cousin Jared. He was the one who picked me up, drove me home, and made sure I had food in the fridge. My parents? They were on vacation. Mexico, I think. They texted me about it a few days later. 2 months passed. I was stuck in my apartment trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do. My savings were quickly disappearing. The bills kept coming. I tried to find work, but the reality was that most people didn't want to hire a one-legged handyman. Then the inevitable happened. I was fired. The boss gave me some excuse about having to downsize, but we both knew the truth. I couldn't do the job anymore. I hung on as long as I could, but eventually I had no choice. I called my parents. I told them I had no money and needed a place to stay. I even offered to pay the rent. There was a long pause before my dad finally said, "All right, but don't expect us to wait on you hand and foot." I should have known then that moving in was a mistake. I had no idea how bad things were going to get. Moving back in with my parents felt like a defeat. I told myself it was temporary, just until I got back on my feet, figuratively speaking. I had no other options. Rent was out of the question, and I didn't want to crash on Jared's couch forever. I packed up what little I had left and took a cab to her house. The moment I walked in the door, I felt like an unwanted guest. Mom barely looked up from her phone. "Your room is still there. Just don't make a mess." Dad looked at my suitcase. "You better not have brought too much crap. We don't have room for all that junk." I gritted my teeth. "It's just a suitcase, Dad." Stacy came in from the kitchen, munching on a granola bar and grinning. "Oh wow, look at you. All moved back in like a little kid. What happened, big guy? Couldn't handle life on your own?" I ignored her and dragged my bag into my old room. It was exactly as I left it years ago, only now it smelled musty, like no one had bothered to air it out. That first night, I already regretted coming back. At dinner, I tried to talk about job options, maybe telecommuting or training for something new. Stacy rolled her eyes. "So you just get to sit on your ass all day while the rest of us work? Must be nice." Dad scoffed. "Yeah, we don't get to do nothing and expect handouts." "A handout?" That's what they thought it was. I offered to pay the rent. I reminded them. Mom sighed dramatically. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But don't expect special treatment just because you had a little accident. A little accident. I clenched my jaw so hard my head hurt. I wanted to throw my plate across the room, but I knew that would just prove whatever twisted point they were trying to make about me being a burden. Instead, I went back to my room. Then the little things started. One morning I woke up and my crutches were missing. I looked everywhere, but they were gone. Stacy came by, sipping coffee. Looking for something? Where are my crutches? She grinned. Maybe if you looked harder, you wouldn't be so helpless. I tore through the house until I finally found them shoved behind the washing machine. No way this was an accident. Then there was the food situation. They made dinner every night, but somehow they never told me when it was ready. I'd come out to find them finishing, the plates practically licked clean. Oh, Mom would say, pretending to be surprised. We didn't know if you wanted any. By the second week, I was hiding snacks in my room. Then came the real humiliation. One afternoon, I was in the living room when Stacy came in with some of her friends. She plopped down on the couch and grinned at me. Hey guys, check it out. My brother's a real-life pirate now. Her friends laughed. I stared at them. Are you serious? She just shrugged. Oh, come on, it's funny. I felt something inside me snap. You think this is a joke? I lost my damn leg, Stacy. She rolled her eyes. Oh, boo-hoo. Maybe if you had a real job you wouldn't have been so careless. I had never wanted to hit someone so badly in my life. But what happened next made it worse. That night, Mom pulled me aside. You really need to stop making Stacy uncomfortable, she said. I almost laughed in her face. Make her uncomfortable? She's just having a good time. Mom continued. You're so sensitive these days. Maybe if you loosened up, people wouldn't feel so uncomfortable around you. That's when it hit me. They weren't just indifferent. They weren't just playing favorites. They were actually enjoying watching me struggle. And I still had no way out. I stopped talking to them unless I had to. There was no point. Every conversation ended the same way, with them making me feel like I was the problem. But the worse things got, the more I realized something was wrong. They weren't just ignoring me. They were actively trying to make my life miserable. One morning I woke up and my wheelchair was gone. Not just moved, gone. I tore through the house, searching every room. Nothing. Finally, I found it in the backyard. It had been left out overnight, and the morning dew had soaked the seat. Stacy came into the kitchen and yawned as I pulled it in. Oh, weird. How did that get out there? I wanted to scream. Then, a few days later, the hot water suddenly stopped working. Plumbing problem, Dad said with a shrug when I asked about it. These things happen. It was strange, though. The sink had hot water. The dishwasher worked fine. But when I turned on the shower, it was ice cold. I was shivering in a freezing shower one morning when I heard laughter outside the door. Stacy's voice. I bet he loves that. It was on purpose. They were doing it on purpose. I started locking my bedroom door at night. I didn't trust them. Then came the worst night. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of my door handle jiggling. At first I thought I was imagining it. Then I heard whispers. Stacy. Sure, just do it. The handle turned again. My heart pounded. I sat up and reached for my crutches. Then I heard a click. They had unlocked the door. I barely had time to process what was happening before my door swung open and suddenly ice-cold water was dumped all over me. I gasped, my whole body twitching from the shock. The water soaked my bed, my clothes, everything. I looked up and saw Stacy and Dad laughing. You looked hot. Stacy grinned. Just helping you cool off. I shivered, part from the cold, part from anger. Get out, I growled. But Dad just folded his arms. Oh, come on. It's just a little fun. Can't you take a joke? I couldn't take it anymore. I barely slept that night. The next morning I made a decision. I was going to get the hell out of there. I called Jared. He didn't even hesitate. Pack your stuff. I'll be there in an hour. I packed everything I could into my suitcase. When I went into the kitchen to get my wallet, Mom looked up from her coffee. Where are you going? Away from you. She sighed and shook her head. So dramatic. You always were sensitive. I didn't bother to argue. I just waited for Jared to pull up and walked out without looking back. But just when I thought I was done with them, life threw me another surprise. A week later, Jared and I were having dinner when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. A calm, professional voice spoke on the other end. Hello, this is Mr. Pearson. I'm your grandfather's attorney. We need to talk about his will. I froze. Grandpa had passed away 2 months ago. I knew he left something, but my parents handled everything and never said a word to me. Now, all of a sudden, a lawyer called me. Something was going on, and I had a feeling it was going to change everything. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing: if my parents had anything to do with this, they wouldn't have told me unless they had something to gain. The lawyer, Mr. Pearson, asked me to come to his office the next morning. I agreed, but as soon as I hung up the phone, I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. My parents should have told me about this. Why didn't they? Jared drove me to the office, and as soon as we stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. My parents and Stacy were already there. They weren't happy to see me. Mom crossed her arms. What are you doing here? I raised an eyebrow. The lawyer called me. Maybe you should ask yourself why you didn't. She scoffed, but before she could say anything, Mr. Pearson came in with a folder and sat down. All right, he said, looking at all of us. Let's get started. I had no idea how much this was going to turn everything upside down. Your grandfather left a small house, Mr. Pearson began. This will go to your parents. Mom and Dad perked up immediately, nodding as if this was exactly what they expected. Stacy grinned, probably thinking she'd get it one day. I waited, expecting that to be the end of it. After all, they never treated Grandpa well. He and I weren't that close either, but we got along better than they did. I figured that was it. Then Mr. Pearson turned to me. And you, Mike, your grandfather left a financial legacy of $1 million. Silence. Dead, suffocating silence. I blinked. I what? Mom's smile faded. Dad's jaw clenched. Stacy actually gasped. $1 million? Dad's voice was tight. Mr. Pearson nodded. Yes. It was his decision. The funds are already secured and will be wired to your account within the next few days. I didn't even know how to process this. I had nothing, no job, no real plan, and now I was a millionaire? Then I looked at my parents, and suddenly it all made sense. They never told me because they thought they were getting everything. And now that they weren't? Their faces looked like they had swallowed broken glass. Stacy was the first to break. That's not fair, she blurted out. What the hell does he need money for? He doesn't even have a job. I turned to her. What do you need a house for? You still live with Mom and Dad. She turned red. That's not the point. Mom leaned forward, fake sweetness dripping from her voice. Mike, honey, don't you think Grandpa would have wanted you to share? I mean, we're family. I actually laughed. Family? You mean the family that kept this from me? The family that laughed when I lost my leg? The family that poured ice-cold water on me while I slept? Dad's face twisted. Oh, don't be dramatic. It was a joke. I stood up. So was this conversation. I turned to Mr. Pearson. Anything else I need to sign? He smiled. No, everything is in order. I nodded and headed for the door. My parents scrambled after me. Mike, wait, Mom called. We should talk about this. Yeah, Dad added. Maybe we can work something out. I stopped just long enough to turn around. You all made my life a living hell when I had nothing. You mocked me, humiliated me, and treated me like garbage. Now you want my help? My money? I smiled. Good luck with the house. Then I walked out. And I never looked back. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could just take my money, move on, and never have to deal with them again. But I underestimated how desperate and crazy my family could be. Because 2 days later, Stacy showed up at Jared's house. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Jared peeked through the blinds. Dude. Your sister's outside. I frowned. What? Yeah, and she's got a suitcase. That got my attention. I rolled over to the window in my wheelchair, and sure enough, there was Stacy, standing in the driveway, arms crossed, a pink suitcase next to her. I opened the door but didn't let her in. What the hell are you doing here? She sighed dramatically. Mom and Dad kicked me out. I blinked. So? She scoffed. And I need a place to stay. Obviously. I actually laughed. You think you're going to stay here? After everything you did to me? She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Mike, are you really still mad about that? It was just a couple of jokes. It's not like we actually hurt you. I grabbed the doorframe. You stole my crutches. You poured water on me in the middle of the night. You laughed when I lost my leg. Stacy shrugged. Okay, but that was before you had any money. I just stared at her. You know how crazy you sound, right? She groaned. Oh my God, whatever. Look, I just need a place to stay for a few weeks. You can afford it now, can't you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So let me get this straight, you bullied me for months, laughed at my pain, treated me like garbage, and now, because I have money, you expect me to take care of you? She flipped her hair. Obviously. That's what family does. I slammed the door in her face. For the next 20 minutes, she banged on the door, screaming about how selfish I was. Then, out of nowhere, she yelled something that made my blood run cold. You think this is over? Mom and Dad have a plan. I froze. Jared looked at me. What does that mean? I had no idea. But I was about to find out. I didn't sleep that night. Stacy's words kept repeating in my head. Mom and Dad have a plan. A plan for what? I should have known they wouldn't just let me walk away with the money. They had already proven that they didn't care about me, only what I could give them. And now that I had something they wanted, I had a bad feeling. The next morning I got my answer. Jared and I were having breakfast when my bank called. Mr. Reynolds, we have a flagged transaction request for the transfer of $750,000. Can you confirm? I almost dropped my coffee. What? The banker cleared his throat. Yes, we received a request this morning from your mother. She claimed you authorized it. I felt my blood boil. I authorized nothing. Do not authorize it. Of course, sir. We'll block the transaction immediately. Would you like to come in and update your security settings? Yes. I'll be there soon. I hung up and looked at Jared. You actually tried to steal from me. His jaw clenched. Dude. That's fraud. That's jail time. I didn't hesitate. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, her voice fake sweet. Mike. Honey, how are you? Cut the crap. You tried to steal from me. There was a pause. Then she sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. It's not stealing, Michael. It's family money. Your grandfather would have wanted us to share. I grabbed my phone. You mean the same grandfather you barely visited? The one you ignored unless you needed something? She ignored that. Listen, honey, we're struggling. The house needs fixing. Your sister needs help. We thought you'd appreciate us taking care of things for you. I laughed. A full, bitter laugh. Grateful? Grateful? You tortured me for months. You treated me like garbage. And now you expect me to just give you money? Her voice grew cold. You owe us, Michael. We raised you. Fed you. Put a roof over your head. I saw red. Yeah? And the second I needed you, you mocked me. You treated me like I was less than human. So you know what? You get nothing. She started to scream, but I hung up. Jared shook his head. You should lock up your credit. They might try something else. He was right. I went straight to the bank, locked everything up, changed every password, and put alerts on every account. But I still wasn't ready for what happened next. That night, my parents showed up at Jared's house, banging on the door, yelling for me to come out. And when I looked through the peephole, Dad had a crowbar. I didn't hesitate. The second I saw my dad standing outside with a crowbar, I grabbed my phone and called the police. 911, what is your emergency? My parents are outside my house trying to break in. My father is armed with a crowbar. That was all they needed to hear. Jared and I stayed inside and watched through the peephole as my mom, Dad, and Stacy yelled at the door. Mom was yelling about how I was a selfish little brat. Dad was daring me to come outside and talk like a man. And Stacy? She just kept yelling that I was going to regret this. Then the sirens came. The second those flashing lights came up, my parents changed completely. Dad dropped the crowbar and threw up his hands. Mom started to cry. Stacy gasped like she was a helpless victim in all of this. But the cops weren't stupid. They took one look at the situation, saw the crowbar on the ground, listened to my 911 recording, and arrested my dad on the spot. Mom and Stacy started yelling at the officers, but it didn't matter. Dad was charged with attempted burglary. He made bail, of course. But that night changed everything. I knew they weren't going to stop. So I made sure they couldn't try anything else. The next day I hired some people. Let's just say they were the kind of people who make sure a message is sent loud and clear. A friendly visit was made to my parents and Stacy. And after that, they never tried again. No phone calls. No texts. No nothing. I don't regret it. Now I live peacefully with Jared. He's the only real family I have. He helps me, takes me where I need to go, and makes sure I'm okay. But I don't let him do it for free. I finance him now. I help him whenever he needs it. Because unlike my parents and my sister, Jared actually earns it.